The Underground Railroad was a huge network of people and safe houses used by American slaves escaping to the North between 1810 and 1865. Over 100,000 slaves escaped during this time. The first record of the Underground Railroad was in 1786 when George Washington complained about how one of his runaways was assisted by a group of Quakers formed for this purpose. The railroad grew and by 1831 had earned its name, the Underground Railroad. Slavery had been in North America for over 300 years when the railroad was founded. The first slaves were brought to America in 1526 by the Spanish to what is now Georgia. In 1619, 100 Africans were shipped to Jamestown, but only 20 survived the trip. By the late 18th century, there were over 600,000 slaves in the United States. The Underground Railroad was not underground, nor was it a railroad. The term was used figuratively. The railroad itself was a group of safe houses, known as stations, in the southern United States, that fugitive slaves used on their journey north. There were also conductors on the railroad that would guide slaves to freedom. One of the most famous conductors on the Underground Railroad is Harriet Tubman.
As one of the most well-known conductors of the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman rescued more than 300 slaves over the span of 11 years.
Harriet Tubman was one of the most remarkable women in American history.
Born a slave in the early 1820s, Araminta Ross changed her name to Harriet Tubman after marrying a free black man named John Tubman around 1844.
As a slave, Harriet Tubman was repeatedly whipped. She also later was hit by a lead weight mistakenly, but that lead weight caused her to experience narcolepsy for the rest of her life.
Fearing that she would be sold away from her family in 1849, Tubman fled to Philadelphia using an informal but well-organized network known as the Underground Railroad.
She felt that she would be sold away because she was viewed as a sickly person. She and two of her brothers ran away, and the brothers decided they would return to the plantation. And she, instead of abandoning them, turned around, went back with them to the plantation, and then turned around and escaped a second time by herself.
Using her own money, Tubman made separate journeys to rescue her sister and brother. And in 1851, Tubman guided a group of 11 fugitives north, earning her the nickname Moses.
Harriet Tubman was called the Moses of her people, largely because she was so successful in leading slaves out of slavery, out of the South, into the North, which symbolically is known as the Promised Land. Moses, the figure from the Bible, leading his chosen people, Tubman took on that kind of mythic quality.